Welcome to Towards 2015, the program to broaden your business perspective in a large market, which is the ASEAN market, with over 600 million consumers. Even though the European Union is encountering one of the worst economic downturns in the century, but the World Trade Organization is confident over the European economic bloc. It has also insisted a positive outlook towards the free trade agreement, saying that it will absolutely benefit the trade and empower the global growth.
สวัสดีครับคุณโรเบิร์ต Trade Counselor of the World Trade Organization. So คุณโรเบิร์ต you are visiting Bangkok to launch the Asia Pacific of the World Trade Report for the year 2011. So can you tell us about the key points of this World Trade Report?
Well, first of all, let me thank you for inviting me to your program.
Yes.
I appreciate this opportunity, and you're correct. We will have the Asia launch of the World Trade Report in Bangkok this afternoon. The World Trade Report is the flagship publication of the World Trade Organization, which is an institution based in Geneva. The topic for this year's report is on preferential trade agreements, which refer to free trade agreements, regional trade agreements, and we use this generic term to refer to all these types of agreements. Now, one reason why we picked this topic for this year's report is because of the proliferation, the increasing number of these agreements, and many observers feel that these agreements pose a major challenge to the WTO.
Can I ask you why there has been so many regional and bilateral FTAs in the past many years?
Well, that's an interesting question, and one observation that the report makes to try to explain this is, in fact, we have actually seen waves of bilateral and regional trade agreements over time, not only in the recent past. And this sort of coincides with periods of economic expansion and openness. In fact,
is it because the WTO is too slow in the global liberalization?
Well, that's one explanation that people provide, many observers provide, and I think certainly that could be one of the explanations for why you have this increasing reliance on free trade agreements. But as I said before, historically, we have had periods of expansion and contraction in the number of such agreements, and this usually coincides with the global economic cycle. So in the 19th century, actually, that's when free trade agreements started, during a period when the United Kingdom or Great Britain was the major economic power, and where it was encouraging more open commercial policies.
What is your opinion on the ASEAN, the free trade area, or AFTA, and now it's becoming the ASEAN Economic Community, which will be effective in 2015? Well,
this one part of the report deals with the creation or establishment of AFTA. As you know, ASEAN was first established as a kind of dealing with political and security issues, but then established the free trade agreement in 1992. We link that actually to what we call global production networks. In other words, the establishment of many multinational corporations within the region, particularly in electronics and automotives. And these particular forms of production, global supply chains, require the production of trade in parts and components, which move around the region. So we link the establishment of AFTA with the growth of these production networks in the ASEAN region, primarily or initially because of a lot of Japanese FDI in electronics and car manufacturing. But of course, ASEAN has moved progressively beyond an FTA. They now include many other areas of economic cooperation, services, intellectual property, and investments. So this economic community is a big step forward beyond what we would term shallow integration into deeper and deeper forms of economic integration. So it's an ambitious plan, but I think it's a natural progression because of the deepening economic links among many countries in the region.
In your opinion, what are the key drivers of the ASEAN free trade area?
Well, as I mentioned, it's basically private sector driven.
Yes.
Unlike many other free trade agreements in other parts of the developing world, I think the ASEAN story is primarily regionalism, interlinkages among the business of private firms within the region before the demand for regional institutions to provide a kind of governing structure over the area. So I think it's primarily supply chains, industry-driven, the economic growth of many countries in the area, which make them very attractive markets.
I see.
Also among the members and also with its major trading partners.
Such as China, Japan, Korea.
Absolutely, the +3, so to speak, in East Asia.
And then India, Australia, and New Zealand.
Absolutely, we have seen ASEAN's having agreements, trade agreements with the China, Japan, Korea, as well as India and Australia and New Zealand.
I understand that the US and Russia are also interested. So going to be ASEAN +8.
Well,
what's your opinion?
Well, there's certainly negotiations going on with the United States. And we know that there are dozens of agreements that are currently being negotiated. So certainly that's a possibility at some point in the future.
So what are the benefits and this benefit of this kind of arrangement in Asia Pacific for the global economy?
Well, I think this form of integration driven by the private sector, global supply chains, agreements that are involved in deep integration, changes in the regulatory framework of the countries are in general non-discriminatory in effects. And so they benefit not only the members of the agreements, but also other regional partners. So I think compared to agreements of the past, which relied primarily on preferential tariffs, this new generation of free trade agreements generally have a much more beneficial impact on non-members, although that is not always a guaranteed thing.
I understand that in this World Trade Report for 2011, you also focus on from coexistence to coherence. Can you explain that?
Yes, the distinction is in the past, many preferential trade agreements relied on preferential tariffs. That was the main intention or the main objective of these agreements. But the new generation of agreements, of which ASEAN is one, is going beyond just tariffs and looking at areas of domestic regulations and bringing them into free trade agreements. The idea is to improve governance on a range of issues that were traditionally the subject of national governments. So the idea behind this report, the idea behind coherence is to say that the relationship between PTAs and the WTO is changing. It's no longer about preferential tariffs, but about all these difficult regulatory areas. So in a sense, that's a new challenge for the WTO, how to deal with harmonization of regulations at the bilateral or regional level, and the need for that process to be consistent with the non-discrimination principle of the WTO.